Good afternoon. I'm going to quickly pray. Dear God, thank you for today, that it's another Sabbath, and that we can just know that you're with us here today through the sunshine and all the great things that we do, and us being here just together, talking about making a difference, because we can only do that through you. Amen. So, all of you that know me well know that when I talk, I say lots of details, and sometimes they're useless details. So, I have wrote what I'm going to say today, and I'm going to read it because I'm a better reader than speaker. So all too often we get caught up in the busyness of life, and without thinking, we can conform to the ways of the world. This is a story about a boy who stood out. Tony was a 21-year-old boy who was placed at a local Kalamazoo school. He was bound to a wheelchair and needed constant on-site assistance as a part of his daily routine. Tony was born with several deformities and life-threatening illnesses, all of which gave him little to no hope of being able to complete school. Tony was not able to talk with his mouth, so everything he said had to be written down. The Kalamazoo school Tony was placed at had an outstanding teacher who was taught to help students just like Tony. This teacher, coincidentally, had a son who went to the same school she was teaching at. Every day, her son, who was a football star at this high school, would come in and say hi to the class and his mother while he had a spare minute. One day before a big football game, the teacher's son brought a few of his friends into his mother's classroom as they were on their way to the field for practice. One of his friends, Brad, noticed Tony and the help that he was getting from the assistants in the classroom. Seeing the help that Tony needed, Brad began to come into the classroom regularly to say hello to the students of the classroom and to see if Tony might need some extra help. Brad became so willing to help that he'd spent his lunches with Tony. Brad would feed Tony. He'd spend his study hour with Tony, getting Tony dressed for gym or just working on homework. And Brad began to spend time with Tony after school as well. Brad, a football jock, became friends with Tony. Close to the end of the year, Tony's family was told that Tony's symptoms were getting worse and he may not survive even to the end of the year. A few weeks before graduation, Tony passed away, and it was devastating to Brad. So you see, Brad, the football jock, Brad was inspired by Tony. Brad and Tony had become best friends. This is a true story, by the way. And I'm a teacher, so it makes sense. I find joy from this, that they were friends. Okay, but close to the end of the year, Tony's family was told that Tony's symptoms were getting worse and that he may not survive to the end of the year. A few weeks before graduation, Tony passed away, and it was devastating to Brad. You see, Brad, the football jock, was inspired by Tony. Brad and Tony had become best friends. Brad spoke at Tony's funeral, and the place was packed from wall to wall in the high school auditorium. Everyone had known Tony since Brad became friends with him. Brad explained that before he had met Tony, life was all about football, girls, and the party the next weekend. But once Brad had met Tony, life became about love, respect, and equality. Brad's life was changed through the love that Tony had shown to him and others. So helping anyone, no matter their social status, color of the skin, or their ability, is what love truly means. Let's turn to John 15, verse 12. John 15, verse 12. And it says, "This is my commandment. This is my commandment. Love one another as I have loved you." So through this true story, who I heard from the teacher that was Tony's teacher, she came to my room and told me about this. Through this true story, I feel as if we could also say that Jesus was kind of like Tony. God so often doesn't say much sometimes, but by knowing and seeing the great things that God has done for us, we are inspired to do things for others, just as Brad had been inspired to help Tony. Today, be encouraged to help someone and love one another just as Christ loves us. Make a difference today.